Just so you know, just don't say anything racist.
Okay.
Anti-Semitic.
I'm Jewish, so
I know. That's why I said that. Were you going to say something about?
Well, I was when we shot, we were talking about if you don't not knowing the difference between pause and record, and when we shot Frances Ha, we shot in Paris for a week.
Oh, right.
And this thing happened where we were shooting in an apartment, and there was a misunderstanding, and the police came to the apartment because we were observed from a window filming.
Is that true? In real life?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Go ahead.
It's true.
By some Parisian?
We were filming near a school, and the teachers thought we were like filming the kids, and then
what's that now?
That's a heater.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you can. There's a lot of it's good white noise, but it's
we have this old, it's called a Dynavent heater.
What is it called?
It's called a Dynavent.
Good. I have a new sponsor. They don't make them, and they're out of business.
They don't make them anymore, but they're great.
So the top one is the
just like
the bottom one's an AC.
The bottom one's a hot air blower called a Dynavent, and the top one is a AC.
Oh,
we're incredibly behind the times.
Hey, listen, it's nice. You're on the Lower East Side, which on certain angles still looks like it might have like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This was probably, or the way it was explained to me this was a sweatshop, and this was probably
They probably had a really big what is it called?
Dynavent.
Dynavent, and that's why it was called a sweatshop.
Yeah.
They're literally just sweating in front of the Dynavent. So this was it makes sense. All these buildings were tenements or sweatshop factories or.
Yeah, it was. I think it was either a sweatshop or just a tenement building back when this neighborhood was predominantly Yiddish speakers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the early 80s, a group of artists came here, bought the building, renovated it themselves, and that was the beginning of this neighborhood changing. And then by the time we moved in, a few of those artists were still here, and the fact that I'm a cinematographer and my wife's a filmmaker was unlike most co-ops where that would be a detriment. Like, what do you mean you're not working all the time? They like that, so we actually played that up.
Sure. Yeah,
that helped us get in the building.
We're just artists. We never know where our next job's
coming
coming from.
They didn't want bankers, lawyers, doctors. They wanted artists. They wanted to keep the
sure.
They
want a good karma in the building, Well, wait. So go back a step now and finish your Frances.
Okay, so we're in Paris shooting Frances Ha
in an apartment though, or
we shot
children in the scene. Is that
no, there's we were
shooting the movie.
We were shooting Greta Gerwig in an apartment building, and her character goes to Paris and tries to meet up with a friend, and they don't quite connect, so she ends up having a visit to Paris on her own. So
right. And
so
she
we're
leaves
filming
like the next day or something. Doesn't she? Right.
She's there for like 2 or 3 days in the movie,
like a weekend.
And then as soon as she lands, her friend leaves her a voicemail like, "Oh, you're here. Let's hang out." But she's already arrived back in New York.
Right. That almost same thing happened to me many years ago in Paris. I got there and I thought somebody close to me was going to be there, and they weren't. So I had to go to like a connection, a loose connection, but it turned out to be a nice time.
And did you take a sleeping pill? Were you there to deal with jet lag?
Oh, right. Greta Gerwig spends, unless I'm confusing it with some other film, right? Does she also get sick, or is she sleeping? I know that
she can't sleep. She can't fall asleep at night because of jet lag. So she takes a sleeping pill at like 4 a.m. She can't sleep, and then she ends up waking up at like 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Because the effect of the sedative.
Sure.
And then she just runs around trying to, experience Paris in a brief time.
Right.
So we were shooting all the sequences where she can't sleep, and then the police showed up because the adjacent school thought we were filming the kids who were playing, and we weren't.
Right.
and they came in, and I saw the audio. This is all about audio recording.
Les argents.
The
Des argents. How do you say that, please? Des argents, I believe.
Argent is money.
That's right. Wait. I guess police.
No, there's a
Gendarme?
word for that. Gendarme is a certain kind of cop.
Yeah.
These guys were not gendarme. Gendarme are like they look like pleasant French police, which they are. These are detectives, plain clothes.
Oh, got you now.
These guys were terrifying. And,
really? It was like Alain Delon and
yeah.
What's the other?
There
guy
was
that
actually
in
the
Breathless?
chief looked a lot like Alain Delon, and then he had his sort of underling was enormous. This huge guy.
Really?
I'm about 6'5". This guy was at least my height and easily weighed 100 pounds more than me.
Yeah.
And they're very intimidating. And I saw the audio recorder. This all goes back to audio recording.
Yeah, right.
And I thought it was rolling. And so and someone had stepped
Try not
away.
to
And I
tap
thought,
the table too much.
oh, sorry.
Okay, it's
Sorry.
repeat. No, it's okay. Repeat
And,
the last story.
So I saw the audio recorder.
Last line. Mm-hmm.
I saw the detectives came in. I saw the audio recorder. I thought it was recording everything. So I thought I should cut this. I thought I cut it, but I actually hit record.
Oh.
I hit the pause button and accidentally recorded it. And then they came in and kind of interrogated us. And I was doing most of the talking because I speak French okay. I speak French pretty well.
Yeah.
So all of it exists somewhere on
the whole
as an audio recording, and then the misunderstanding was made clear, and
they got it, and then
we showed them
more friendly after they realized.
Yeah,
you guys were
we showed
innocents?
them the footage that we shot and explained, that this is an adult person.
Was it Greta Gerwig in the room?
Yeah.
Did she? That's good. By the way, next time I see her, I'll have a story for her, that I can relate with her. Wow, that's incredible. Really, What a kind of, I guess it turned out to be a good anecdote for you, but at the time I'm sure it wasn't quite so funny.
It was scary at the time.
Because you didn't know until they explained why they were there, right? Did they say immediately that the school was complaining, or did you...
Yeah.
Did they,
no, they did. Well, they didn't have to. It was self-evident that there was a misunderstanding.
Sure, yeah. Right. So, hello, Sam Levy.
Hello, Adam.
Let's you shot obviously how many films now? How many features, for instance?
9 feature films.
9 feature films, because I know you've shot also obviously some commercials and probably some other shorts and probably a bunch of other types of things, projects. 9 features, right? Are they all narrative films?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You shot While We Are Young?
Yes.
Right? That's the other one.
3 of the 9 films were Noah Baumbach films.
Right.
While We're Young, Frances Ha, and Mistress America.
Did you? Okay, so the first, let's see. I think it was for Frances Ha, which was, I think, the first collaboration between Noah and Greta, correct?
Correct. Not with Noah and Greta. They first worked on Greenberg together.
Oh, Greenberg.
Although I wasn't involved with that.
Well, I think it was during Frances Ha when I had them both on.
Maybe
I did years ago. Obviously, this goes back like 5 years, maybe even
about
more.
6 years actually.
Yeah, wow. So anyway, I'm just mentioning, but I didn't meet you then. So you shot 3 films with Baumbach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while we were young, you didn't shoot the Meyerowitz Chronicles.
No,
right?
that was Robbie Ryan.
Lady Bird, probably.
Right. Yeah. They coincided around the same time.
Yeah.
Lady Bird and Meyerowitz.
Right. And what are the other 2 then? Well, you said you didn't shoot Greenberg. So
right. Harris Savita shot Greenberg.
Oh wow, the late.
And then I was a protege of Harris's.
Right.
And I'd worked as an assistant for him on different stuff. And he introduced me to Noah around the time that Noah was preparing Frances Ha.
Mm-hmm.
And Noah had approached Harris about doing Frances Ha, but he was busy and suggested me.
Did you do the one before, I guess, with Jack Black and Nicole Kidman?
Margot at the Wedding?
Margot at the Wedding?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No. The only movie I got to work on with Harris was The Yards, James Gray's movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked for him a lot on commercials as a camera assistant.
So Harris was Noah's guy.
Yeah, I mean they
And
only
Sofia
did
Coppola
they only
too, right?
yeah Harris did 2 movies for Noah,
Okay.
Margot at the Wedding and then Greenberg.
I think, by the way, not that you were on that film, so I'm not going to waste much time with it, but I thought that Margot at the Wedding was quite a nice homage to Rohmer. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good film, but it didn't. Obviously, it was
I love that film.
Very niche film.
I love that movie.
People who aren't really into French cinema of that period are not going to really. They're going to probably what is the rhythm of this film? I don't get it.
Yeah,
You know?
well, that's an interesting thought. I think even if you don't like French cinema of the 60s, 70s, new wave, I think there's a way in to something like Margot at the Wedding. But
yeah, it's just that a lot of people don't mention that particular film, which is kind of nice because then it becomes more your own go-to, your own film. But so anyway, I keep interrupting. You mentioned you worked on 3 films. So were 2 of them, like, in other words, assisting the cinematographer? Is that what it was? Or
well, I did 1 movie as an assistant to Harris Savitas,
right.
Which was The Yards. So I'd been working as an assistant to him on TV commercials, and then he was looking for someone to do this very specific thing on The Yards because he was doing all this kind of extreme technical stuff he wanted to keep track of with underexposure and just kind of beating up the film in this alchemical kind of way, which is very much what Harris was about. So he was looking for someone to take his lighting diagrams and then take still photos and sort of be a liaison to the lab to oversee the consistency of the film print dailies.
This is the glamorous side of cinematography, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of nuts and bolts stuff. And so he approached me about doing this kind of apprenticeship. On
so
the
there's
Yards.
a lot of science, it sounds, a lot of chemistry involved in, I mean, potentially, right? At least back in the film days, there certainly was.
The photochemical film print process, there's an intense amount of chemistry, which you can engage with or you can disengage with, depending on the type of cinematographer. Harris is the kind of cinematographer who's highly engaged, and the kind of chemicals used to process the film, using them, not using them, and then the emulsion of the film, being in direct contact with Kodak about what kind of emulsion there were. And in many cases, he would berate them for getting rid of older emulsions because they were trying to always stay updated. And then late 90s, early 2000s, particularly trying to make faster, more light-sensitive films to compete with the digital cameras. And
just describe what emulsion is for those listening.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no.
So the emulsion on a film stock is there's 2 sides to a film stock. There's the base side, which doesn't have any light sensitivity, and there's the emulsion side. The emulsion side is the side of the film that is exposed to light and creates an image. So the consistency and type of emulsion that gets exposed to light and creates an image, it has everything to do with the character of the image. So the chemical makeup of an emulsion will determine if you need more light, less light, the color, saturation, the density of color, and also what kind of grain the film has. If it's so, then the same emulsion, the same exact emulsion, if it's 16 millimeter versus 35 millimeter, will look different just because of the size of the negative, and then how when you're shooting film, the way you expose the film, how much light you let
into the lens,
you let through the lens, very much determines the density of the negative, or the quality of the colors.
Sure.
So when Harris hired me, he was playing around very much with.
That's where saturation, contrast come into it.
Exactly. The how much or how little color there is in the image. and how rich, like the shadow area or the sort of like black area of the negative.
Sure. And how it just comes down to an aesthetic in terms of those choices, correct? Like what?
Yeah, it comes down to the taste and the personality of the person shooting. Mm-hmm. So you can really engage with this technical side or this photochemical, chemistry side. You can really get into it.
Makes sense.
And you can also get lost in it. It's very easy to just focus on.
Have you had that experience with people you worked with?
As an assistant, definitely.
Yeah.
Since I've been shooting, now I'm a cinematographer. So if I interact with other cinematographers, it's socially. It's not really in the workplace.
Yeah.
Because we're our own.
There's one.
We're our own islands. It's like being like a bus driver. There can only be one.
Yeah.
But when I was an assistant, getting to work with Harris, and I also worked quite a bit for Darius Kanji, who shot Seven and Delicatessen.
Wow.
But then also amazing. A number of other people who you could see. Some people just, frankly, were lazy and didn't want to either do the research or just played it safe a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to take risks or try new things because it can be scary to do those things, but also
it could fail.
Yeah, it could fail. You can get fired. It's very easy.
More risky.
It does happen that cinematographers get fired, particularly not getting along with the director or the studios. Studios will fire cinematographers.
There has to work. That relation has to be intimate, and it has to really work. It can't not work because then, right? That's it. Yeah.
If there's well-known actors, they need to look good. That kind of thing. About riding the line between seeing these faces that producers are paying for, but staying true to the story and blending those things together, so it's not, you're not necessarily making a beauty commercial, but you're also not disregarding how people look and kind of taking care of them. These are all things a cinematographer has to work out with the director. Where do we stand on how good or not good people look, and ideally the actors themselves, most of the great actors I worked with don't concern themselves too much with looking great. Of course, they don't want to look bad if they don't have to, but they don't get distracted by that thing.
And there's no sort of, it wouldn't be like the obvious who would be that person who's like really hung up on the way they're shot and the way they come off looking, right? It could be, for all we know, Jack Black had that same, maybe.
I don't think so.
I'm just bringing that up arbitrarily. You can't really, right? Because you can't really, and the ego exists in anybody in that regard. It's not, it doesn't have to be Nicole Kidman.
I've been fortunate. All the ones I've worked
Nicole
on,
Kidman, but it doesn't have to be.
All the ones I've worked on, everyone is very gracious and engaging. Like they want to forge a relationship with the cinematographer because you're right there in the room, and usually people are very trusting. I haven't had any bad experiences in that way, but it'll come up, particularly if it's people who aren't ingenues. It's a discussion usually with the director, like where do we stand, how much or how little do we want to take care of people, and it's generally self-evident. Like we never seek to make people look bad, of course.
Of course. Yeah, makes sense. Right. You mentioned, though, again, I just want to get the answer. You said you worked with Noah 3 times, 3 different film projects. So one we know is two. We know 2. We have Francis Ha and While We Are Young.
Right.
I always want to say we're young, but that doesn't make sense. While We Are Young. While we were young. That would be bizarre. And what was the third one?
The third one was Mistress America.
Oh, I see. I knew there was one more in there, and I was struggling to remember, but I did see that one. Yeah, I did. I can't for a moment. I can't really remember too much of it now in my head, but I do remember seeing it and where I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I'm a fan, so I'll go see everything. And I know you were involved in the new one, but the Meyerowitz stories. But I enjoyed that too. I mean, I could relate to several things that were themes in the movie.
But yeah, actually, I didn't shoot Meyerowitz stories.
No, I know you didn't.
Okay.
I said that.
Okay.
I know you weren't
Sorry.
involved in it, but I'm just saying I'm a fan of Noah Baumbach, his films anyway. And Greta, I mean, Lady Bird, I should mention at this point, I saw it at the New York Film Festival.
Oh, great.
And totally loved it. In fact, I really loved it, and I loved the way it looked too.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. And I just watched. What did I watch? I watched. I was at 3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Oh yeah,
The new Martin McDonagh film, and the young actor who's in. I think, right? It's the same kid. I wish I knew his name. Now I'm going to sound like an idiot. But this one of the kid who comes out essentially to.
Oh, Lucas Hedges. The kid who comes out in Lady Bird.
Yeah,
Lucas Hedges.
yeah, that's
Right.
his name, I guess.
He's brilliant.
He's in 3 Billboards.
He
plays Francis McDormand's son.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in Manchester by the Sea.
Oh, right, of course. That's where I saw him too. Yeah, that was also his great. He was called out from that film, like he really was a discovery out of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's your newest project, then, obviously.
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird.
Yeah.
Are you happy with it?
Yeah, extremely happy.
The response at the press and industry screening was really positive. And then Greta, did a press conference afterward, and the audience was very fawning and very, very sweet to her.
Yeah.
I'm sure she had I don't know if you spoke to her since, but she had a very positive experience.
Yeah, I have spoke to her since we went to the New York Film Festival premiere together, and then my mom came. And
oh, really? Where's she?
My mom lives in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is where I grew up.
Makes sense. But for those who don't know, it's a Jewish neighborhood. It's not important.
It's extremely Jewish.
It's very.
There
Jewish.
are people who are not Jewish, but
I know. Yeah, but Brookline is like your Great Neck of the Boston area. Let's put it that way. Correct? More or less. Or maybe,
I don't know Great Neck intimately, but that sounds
some
right.
Arbitrary Jewish town in Nassau County.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what else was recently? Just so I'm kind of caught up in case I can.
Recently, other than Lady Bird, I spent the summer working for Spike Jonze, the director Spike Jonze.
Yeah, something I haven't had on here yet. I'd love to do that. Maybe with this project you're referring to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on 2 things for Spike this summer. Neither of them were feature films. One was a concert tour for Frank Ocean, where we were on stage with Frank Ocean, filming him using different video cameras, and it provided the live video footage for his show. They had these IMAG screens, they call them. They're these enormous screens that most concerts have now. Most decent sized concerts.
Are you saying behind him, so
Right.
people in the nosebleeds can see?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Most concerts now have 3 screens. They have one on stage left, one on stage right, and one
above.
Stage center.
Above. Right.
So there'll usually be some variation of this 3-screen setup.
Yeah.
Some of them, like these are all music festivals, summer music festivals that we went to.
Okay.
So some of them, like Coachella or Panorama, which is like the New York version of Coachella, have these enormous high quality screens. And then other music festivals they'll have these 3 screens, but not quite as big, maybe not quite as decent quality, but always 3. So we'd shoot stuff that would get fed to these screens, and we had all these different cameras to provide different looks. And then we were, recording everything so that Spike and Frank could use it for something else, which I think they're doing, but I'm not sure exactly what's happening there.
Yeah, actually, I know of Frank Ocean. I've heard things. I think he's sing. Is it R&B?
I think it's interesting. It's like R&B rap.
Rap.
I don't know.
But he's singing. He's like kind of doing. He's like singing romance. He's a romantic guy, right? I mean his kind of reputation. It's like
it's like I guess you could call it like impressionistic R&B.
Oh, okay.
His lyrics are somewhat abstract, I would say, and but he sings a lot. It isn't exactly rap. There's definitely a hybrid thing happening there.
Yeah, I've been meaning to kind of really.
Actually, a great way to. He has these several great albums which are fun to listen to. He also has a really great radio show it's only available on Apple Music, but he plays his music and kind of DJs.
He's curating it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he has really eclectic taste. Like he'll play Suicide, the band Suicide, and it was really fun. So I worked on that for Spike, as well as a piece called Changers, which was a dance piece that Spike wrote and directed, and he hired me to film all these different aspects of the show, and then we it coalesced into this one number that we filmed for the Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show, where it's like one number from the dance show that we shot as a live film for Jimmy Fallon, which was fun, and it starred Lakeith Stanfield.
Sure, I know him
from Atlanta.
Get Out, whatever it's called.
Right, Get Out in Atlanta. He's brilliant, and Mia Wasikowska, I think is how you say her name.
I'm not going to correct it.
Who's also brilliant.
Okay. Yeah.
That was really so. That's what I spent the last few months doing.
Very, very diverse kind of things going on. I guess that keeps it interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're collaborating, I'm going to say collaborating with a lot of these great filmmakers who really have vision, real vision, that could keep you going also. But I mean, then it's nice to kind of spice it up with other types of.
Ideally, it's nice. So as a cinematographer, I don't write, I don't direct, I don't really have any interest in doing those things.
No deep-rooted desire to direct?
No.
Is it off the table?
Yeah, I'd say it's off the table. I mean, I take still photos, and that's something I can do by myself,
right?
And by myself of my not of me, but the creative desire is there, and I have no desire to direct.
Yeah.
Cinematography to me is so comprehensively creative that I feel like it's
sufficient.
It's a lifetime pursuit.
I've never heard of cinematographer prison either, or jail, whatever they call it. But I have heard of director's jail. So that's also something to be said for that, right? And then you can work with so many different people, but I guess a director can too. But it's amazing how many directors we before we turned on the recorder, we were talking about Todd Haynes a little bit, and I've been in emailing with that's an exaggeration because I'm the one sending the emails with Ed Lockman, but they have obviously an ongoing collaboration, and he's a guy who I would put into that category you were describing, maybe not getting lost in the science of cinematography, but definitely steeped in it. And I went to during the New York Film Festival. There was, I don't know if you were there at the Walter Reed for this talk between him and Vittorio Storaro.
I was out of town. I missed that, unfortunately. How was it?
I went. I wonder if you could see it all. I know they shoot it, so if they're not putting it up somewhere, why are they? You might be able to see it somewhere. I just haven't ever followed up on it. It was. Let's see. It was worth going to for sure. A couple of things. One is it was interesting. Vittorio, who's some 80-year-old guy or 80-plus-year-old guy, was talked 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not as though he needed to talk 90% of the time. A lot of what he said could have been said in a short amount of time, so it's an interesting thing. But, you know, it's Vittorio Storaro, so what are you going to do? But Ed was much more, you know, what's the word? To the point, just succinct. And, you know, Vittorio said he kind of embraced digital, you know, and it's not. But and Ed was like disagreed, and he, you know, which this was the most, you know, interesting part I thought of the whole evening, and said, you know, I just believe that any craftsman should have as many tools available to him as possible, which is ultimately what he was trying to say. And he really loves film, you know, and has been went into some detail about why, you know. So I was thinking about him when you were talking before.
Yeah,
you know, and he's like, I don't know how old he is. He's
Ed
pushing 70, I guess.
I don't know.
I'm going to guess he's pushing 70.
His body of work, 60s. Both of them, but Ed Lachman's body of work is incredible. I went to the ASC Awards last year, and they gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and they made a montage of all of his work that was just breathtaking. Easily.
The pressure's on, though, for that. You don't want to show a crappy montage of a cinematographer's work.
But they honored a few other people, and they made similar montages, which were nice. But his was
not
just,
like that. Yeah.
Then
what else has he done other than those the Todd Haynes movies? Because I never see his name anywhere else. I'm sure I'm just not seeing it.
He's done so many things and had such an eclectic career that I wish
I'm sure I've seen it and just forgot. I just always remember, you know, you always expect it to
I mean, just off the top of my head, he shot Less Than Zero. He shot Desperately Seeking Susan.
Oh, he did?
I know.
He shot Desperately Seeking Susan?
He shot, which is a beautiful movie.
It is. Yeah. Well, what's that? I've been also trying to get Susan Seidelman on it, and unsuccessfully, even though we emailed. She did email back. But when I get Ed on, eventually, when the Todd Haynes, when Wonderstruck kind of, you know, comes off its current, you know, the cycle that it's on, you know, I'll probably get him, and then maybe that'll make it easier to get Susan on when I show. Hey, you know, Ed just did the show. Why don't we get together?
Hopefully,
you know,
I'd love to hear.
She seems like her on your show. She seems like somebody though who's may not want to sound. You know, this is one thing I'm very sensitive to. You invite somebody on, older person on, and by older, just, you know, been around for a long time, and, you know, maybe they are great work, as many people's have, or there's not that many Scorsese's and whomever out there. You know, they want to be perceived as relevant, you know?
Yeah.
And so they're probably reluctant to want to come on and talk about things they did 30 years ago. So I understand it. I had Griffin Dunn on. I don't know if you listened to that.
I didn't. I saw that you did. I didn't get a chance to listen to it.
Well, listen to it because we talked. Because I had more time with him than I thought, and so we talked. You know, there's a point where you realize the arc of your conversation is coming to an end. It's just, you know, there's a break. You know, it's a natural thing in a conversation, and then I realized, and nobody was coming in to interrupt us. So I said, while we're here, let's talk about After Hours, because everybody from my generation, you know, that was like
what a brilliant movie.
I mean, even of
How
course
could you
American
not
Werewolf,
ask?
but I'm more familiar with After Hours. I've seen that more recently. And you know, he divulged that actually he's working on developing it into a series. Like it might be a series. Like, so they're going to bring it back. Like Spike Lee recently brought back She's Gotta Have It.
Yep.
And also, what else? There's been a couple of more cases, and. So, and then I was like, you know, I said to him, you know, I'm a little reluctant to bring something from your past because, you know, but since we just spent a half hour talking about his new documentary, I felt like, you know, he's probably not going to mind if I bring up something older. And he goes, yeah, I used to care about that when I was, you know, some time ago, but I don't care anymore.
Well, he's got his new documentary that everyone's talking about.
And also,
probably helps.
He's also now just old enough where he realizes, what, you know, it's great just to have contributed if the people care about the work you've done. And, you know, he's not trying to prove anything, and he's not. Yeah, and you're right. He has a new documentary. He's working on several things. He's got this successful, a series that at least was critically successful. I Love Dick, you know, which was, I don't know if you got to see that. You're probably busy working too much, but it's very entertaining, and he's really doing something different in that. It's really fun to see him in that. So yeah, he's not threatened by this idea of talking about a movie he made 30 years ago. So what with Susan Seidelman, I'm sensing maybe. Look, it's. I don't think, I shouldn't be cutting my nose off here. I can edit it out, I suppose, but I don't think she's done anything memorable for a long, long time. So it could be that.
Yeah,
which is understandable.
I'd love to hear that.
But I still would like to talk to her.
Even I met her once. There was a program that I was loosely involved with, a mentorship program where filmmakers help high school kids make films, and she was heavily involved in mentoring. It was a young woman from Brooklyn who made a short film, and it was actually a program I was looking to get involved with. So I went to a screening of the short film she had mentored, and ended up getting to talk to her. And I think she teaches at NYU, and a good friend of mine teaches experimental film at NYU. So we talked about that and an experimental film, and even in a social engagement where we're not being recorded, I want to be mindful of talking to a director or anybody else about maybe what's more recent.
But it's interesting. A lot of her contemporaries are finding a lot of new work in TV. A lot of people that were big film people, and frankly, it makes sense. Not just even, because they just haven't written anything or found the right thing. It's like literally they're marginalized. They can't get money for anything going. I mean, they want to do something meaningful and artistic. I know I've spoken to several people, and they choose television because they're getting good content, good material, and it's good work. Obviously, it can pay, I suppose, at least somewhat. So it's not surprising, And a lot of the people from that generation can't find financing to do anything.
Yeah, I think from any generation, it's hard. It's hard for feature films right now. There's small budgets, and then there's huge big budgets, and this is commonplace knowledge, but there's not that many $10 million, $20 million movies. And then from there, even experienced directors, maybe in their prime, just getting a decent budget or even a modest budget it's a struggle. I'm not. Probably has something to do with TV and streaming and all that stuff, but people still seem to want to see movies, and it's I don't know. I mean, as a cinematographer, when I get called to do TV, people very much want to talk about the movies that I've done, and that's definitely an allure. And I haven't really done that much TV, and that will come up, but people they usually say the same thing. We want this to be as cinematic as possible, or
What are they saying when they say that? What's that code for? What is the subtext?
I mean, that they want it to feel like a feature film and not what we used to think of as TV shows. Multiple cameras, talking heads.
Isn't everybody just? I mean, now it seems like the overall majority of TV shows, or serial material. I don't know what you call it anymore. Productions are shot like films. I mean, are going for that, right? I mean,
yeah, I think it depends. I haven't done that much, so I can't speak knowledgeably, but my impression is the logistics of TV are shifting a little bit. It used to be perceived as by people who work on movies and TV commercials that TV is one of the harder things to work on because it's generally it's a grind and the schedule is pretty severe. I think that's starting to change, and certainly more people who wouldn't have thought of doing TV are. And I think it's led greatly by the actors who you see doing it. Certainly the directors who go towards TV, and definitely the experience of watching TV is different. Just something that's a serial structure, being able to work out ideas over a longer period of time. I think where it's difficult as a cinematographer is things like, well, let's use 3 cameras and hose this down, as they say. Like let's just add as many cameras as possible to try and make our schedule and just make it as good as you possibly can. And
I don't know. I wouldn't want to be too, involved in any work where the phrase "hose it down" is used, unless I'm a firefighter. But anyway,
it gets said, unfortunately. But the fact is, even on feature films, sometimes we'll use multiple cameras if you're filming like 2 people eating dinner, and you need close-ups of both of them. Yeah.
Otherwise, your shooting schedule gets crazy, right? I mean, you have to. Sometimes you can really narrow it down.
It's one method. What it gives you is, you have great continuity. Like you have the same performance from both people there,
right,
in camera or in 2 cameras. But generally, when you only use one, you get better stuff cinematically, but logistically it might pose a problem. So at what cost? These are the things we discuss, as director, cinematographer, producer. We run through these things. What can we afford to do this? Can we afford not to do this? Does it pose a threat to the movie at large? Even though we might get a few more takes, well, sometimes getting a few more takes might really benefit the performance and help the movie. So as a DP, you need to put aside your concern of, the lighting might not be as great, because it is more difficult to light for 2 cameras than one.
Makes sense.
There's like a crude saying, like in a 2-camera shootout, one dies. Like one shot is not as strong as the other if you use 2. So you kind of have to pick. If you have two angles, you kind of have to pick which one you're lighting for, and the other one you just try and make it as good as you can.
You didn't set up for that one. You set up for the other camera. The first one. Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah.
But then again, the more practice as a DP you have doing that multiple camera thing, the better you get at it. But it's always good to keep in mind, like Woody Allen never uses 2 cameras, for example. Brian De Palma never uses 2 cameras. It's good to if you use more than one camera, it's good to really look at why you're doing it and to be very purposeful about it, because it might really benefit the film. But to have that clarity is very important, because then it really will benefit the film if you've thought about it and you don't just sort of create a false economy. Like, well, the more cameras we have, the faster we'll move. In fact, the more cameras you have, the longer it takes to light generally. And, if you're looking in multiple directions, you have to really plan that kind of thing very carefully for it.
Is it the same amount of work for the editor regardless? Because you're going to shoot the close-ups that you're going to shoot with one camera, right? You're going to do if you need multiple angles and you have one camera, it's going to end up being pretty much the same amount of footage as if.
Yes, although most editors love 2 cameras.
That's what I was going to. That's what I was thinking. I would assume so, because then they have far more choices how to get in and out of things. They're
able to modulate. The more shots you have, the more you can modulate the tempo later. And then if you want to cut a line out or, something like that, it's right there.
So TV editors are less anxious in general than film editors. because they usually
licentious.
less stressed out, anxious, less anxious because they.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think TV editors have a lot of stress just because of the schedule, probably.
Okay,
but ideally, the editor and DP, like we're very much in contact, and while we're shooting, we have a good rapport, and we try and balance each other out so that we're serving each other. And really, at the end of the day, serving the director and the story. But yeah, and generally speaking, my first instinct is, what is the fewest amount of shots we can do a scene, or can we do it in just one? Because if we can do something virtuosic with camera movement, or create a dynamic and modulate the tempo without having to cut, that's cinema. That really feels cinematic. So the less coverage there is, the less it will really feel like our old conception of TV. But in dealing with something, if you have a lot of dialogue and if you have a 4 or 5 page or 4 or 5 minute scene with a lot of dialogue between two people, it can be tricky, and sometimes one shot can fall flat after a while. So, but these are the things we try and figure out to make something dynamic cinematically. And ideally, my job is to help create a film where the viewer's so engaged they're not thinking about photography or editing or any technique, that you don't really think about the technique.
Do you feel like that's true for most cinematographers, or do you feel like some feel they want to be present in the viewing experience, or I don't, you know what I mean?
Well, I think all of us in some way want to be acknowledged or told, you did a good job. Like that, no one dislikes being told to do a good job, but I think,
you just, I didn't think about the cinematography the entire time, and then afterwards they, maybe they think about it. That's,
I can only go at this point. I can only go by what I see in other people's work, and some movies definitely seem to have a palette or a lighting or a look that is very heavy.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned what was it, the guy who shot Seven? No, not
Darius
Fincher,
Kanji.
but yeah, Darius Kanji.
Yeah.
There's a guy, for instance.
Well, Darius, I mean, I worked for Darius, and he's a good friend.
I mean, obviously it's a beloved cinematographer.
But Darius is very adept at creating something luscious, but he's a great storyteller. So I think the bigger issue, maybe behind your question, is if a film just doesn't work on a basic level, but the photography is lush, then maybe that's all you have. And there's only so much you can do as a DP. Like if a script doesn't quite work, there's not too much you can do to counteract that. But it is, like maybe I'll give an example from a movie that I love from the last year. I think it was the last year. Tony Erdmann is a movie that I really love. I really love that movie, and I think it's beautiful. But it's a very plain-looking movie.
Sure, that's true. You wouldn't think about. I enjoyed that movie too. I never thought about like the cinematography in it.
No, I don't think anyone does. So none of the reviews, none of the criticism, none of the. No one talks about the cinematography of Tony Erdmann. But to me, I watch that movie. It's a very sophisticated movie visually, also very subtle. It's not luscious at all, But when I watch it, I think Myron Odd, I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. Myron Odd and her DP, I feel are extremely capable of creating something lush and beautiful. That's just my theory, not knowing those guys at all. I watched it and thought, these guys could make this pretty, but it feels like they're not. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
But shot in a lot of places like hotels and offices and wasn't it?
Conference rooms.
It's hard to make that very aesthetic looking or lush or it seems like if you did, that would be kind of odd. Not the right choice.
I felt like there's a great visual subtext there, a decisiveness about emphasizing how plain all of these places are. And I actually kind of disagree. I think you can, if you go to an industrial environment, you could take a Helmut Newton kind of approach and make it into something else and transform it into something lush. But what I love about that movie is that they didn't. And, in so doing, you don't think about the cinematography of that movie, but there is cinematography clearly of that movie. A lot of decisions were made, and I think about it because of the subtlety. But
what is it like working with a first-time director? I mean, after you've shot a bunch of movies, and now you're working with sort of a new director for the first time. Of course, referring to Greta Gerwig. It is the nature of that relationship. She must be leaning on you quite a bit. Maybe.
Well, Greta's so Lady Bird is Greta's solo directorial debut. She co-directed a movie with
Joe Swanberg,
right?
Nights and Weekends or something, right, which was pretty awful.
She co-directed.
I'm gonna say it's not Joe's greatest film.
She co-directed a movie. She also co-wrote Frances Ha and Mistress America, which I shot. So she didn't direct those movies, but she's really not your typical first-time director because she's very seasoned.
Okay, so she's not just show up and do her acting gig. She's really involved in the production side.
Yeah, always.
Okay,
always. Okay. That said, it still was her first time directing on her own. So there's no getting around the fact that until you do that on your own for the first time, you're not doing it. So there are a lot of things she was experiencing for the first time. But did she lean on me? In some ways, yes.
She would have probably done so anyway. In other words, even if she made several films.
A director always, a good director-DP relationship, we lean on each other.
Yeah.
If a director's
so maybe that's the better way to have put it then. Did you find yourself leaning on her the way you would have leaned against other seasoned directors?
That's a great question. I think maybe more. Maybe I did so more. We were very close because we'd done 3 movies together, 2 with Noah Baumbach and 1 with Rebecca Miller that she didn't co-write. Maggie's Plan,
which I had Rebecca Miller.
I know. I heard that. I heard that interview.
Is that what made you want to be on this podcast?
That was actually how I discovered your podcast.
Oh, wow.
Hearing Rebecca on here.
That's true. I just saw her. We'll get off track for a second, but we'll come right back. I just was up in Woodstock, and because I know the Arthur Miller doc played at the New York Film Festival as well, but I didn't have a chance to see it there. So, but I was up in Woodstock, and I ended up spending the last evening overnight, which I wasn't going to. So it gave me the ability to go see it because it was the closing night film at Woodstock, and Rebecca was there, but I just didn't feel. And I saw her in a panel too, actually with Griffin Dunn on documentaries of the New York, and I could have gone up to her, but I just. I just didn't. And
we've all.
Yeah, there's no reason why. She's totally approachable. But one reason is also I was worried. I had a ride. I was I had no service with my phone, and I'm trying to get a ride from Woodstock back to Saugerties with my hosts, and I didn't want to miss them, and so I had to get up, and she was in the lobby, and I'm running back and forth for a couple of times. So it was kind of looked like the rude guy who's not sitting through the movie. At some point, anyway, I was there for 80%, 90% before I had to do that. But anyway, but she was really great on the show. I mean, she was a great guest. So yeah. But
Yeah,
to go back to, sorry.
No, Rebecca's amazing.
So you worked on that. You shot
Maggie's
plan
for Rebecca
which had
Miller.
Which makes I'm seeing and I thought, oh, this is Rebecca Miller's Noah Baumbach kind of meets, like, you know, it's her contemporary American indie. You know, like it just felt like it belonged in that universe.
Yeah.
You know, of film category.
Yeah. Well, Greta starring in the movie, having just been in a couple of Noah's movies, it's hard not to, maybe to not think that.
Well, it was also the pace, and again the way it. I don't know. There's something about it which is very, like in a way, even though again you didn't work on Meyerowitz, it kind of felt of that world, you know, just in a lesser degree, Lady Bird. Yeah, maybe it is Greta's influence. I'm not sure.
Well, you asked, did she lean on me? I definitely leaned on her. She's such an exceptional writer, which is what most people emphasize is her writing. But she's such a great director. She's really strong visually, which is important. It's very important for the director DP collaboration. Yeah, if the director is not visually strong, it's hard. If they're not bold or willing to take some risks, which Greta really is. So she's a great leader. You know, she leads from the front. She's a natural leader, and a leader in the sense that she has great cinematic instincts, but also very inclusive of the crew and very much a part of the crew. She's the leader of the crew, and not every director is necessarily like that, or it happens in different kinds of ways. And with her, she would play music while we were setting up, but know exactly when to taper off the music when it was time to shoot. She had a great balance on set. And then, you know, but before we got into production, she and I spent a lot of time constructing and deconstructing her script, building a shot list, and finding our aesthetic vernacular. And because we had a great shorthand from having worked together over many years, it was very kind of, it felt easy. I mean, we worked extremely hard, but there was an easygoing, fun quality to the, it's sort of like when you discover you like to do something. In my case, when I discovered I liked working on films, when I first discovered it was really fun, and I could do it with my friends and we could laugh, but also work very hard. It was, working on Lady Bird was like that. It was kind of like rediscovering what I like about making feature films.
Well, that's great. Well, that'd be good to happen every, 6 or 7 films, where you can have that sense of...
Hopefully more frequently.
Yeah, well, but, there's a natural point where you could probably tire of certain things, right? Do you find... well, when is Lady Bird is coming out?
Comes out tomorrow. Oh, wait, sorry. It comes out Friday.
Oh, this Friday?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Comes out...
How am I so out of
November
step with
3rd in New York and LA, 3rd. And then November 10th, other cities.
Right. Okay. Were we supposed to post this by then? Because... I can't.
I don't know. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
I have so much stuff going on, and I'm about to...
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah.
Post it whenever it's convenient.
I will. I'm excited to do so, too, and because it's apparent it's going to be its own segment or episode, which is fine. One thing, if you get a director on to have worked on 10, roughly 9 features, you said, I think?
Yeah, Lady Bird is my 9th.
Right. So if I were to bring on a director counterpart, there's no way that person would be not, well, at this stage, they would well, first of all, I wouldn't be able to, they would want to obviously plug their film, but if they had a project, but it would also be, I was going to say somebody significantly older, but that's not true. But most typical directors who are working sort of in the independent world go slower. They're making films somewhat slower. But then somebody like Noah, for instance, he's got more financing going on, obviously. So he's not working. He's a bit more prolific than your average. It seems to me.
He's prolific.
He's making one every other year at this stage or something.
Yeah,
something like
DP as a DP, you can, if you really wanted to, you could shoot 2 to 4 movies every single year.
Really,
you can just go back to back. Which I'm not that kind of person. I'm fortunate. I'm able to. I work on TV commercials, which is largely that's how I make a living. But I've tried to be. I'm fairly picky.
Well,
things come up, but there's always opportunity. I could just do things back to back if, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's a good way to. It's a good, I think, setup, and then you choose the film based on, on what you want to do.
Yeah,
not what you need to do. So you're not just taking it.
That's the goal. I mean,
out of desperation because you don't have another thing.
You asked me before about being a director, which I really cinematography really it's the thing. I mean, there's so much there for me. There's enough there for me. It's just kind of where I fit in and where I'm happiest. But because I don't write my own stuff, the only thing the control I have is saying yes or no to something. If I'm not engaged, then. But I try to keep an open mind and, mix it up.
What are the other? So you, Noah, Greta, you mentioned Rebecca Miller.
Right.
Who else have you worked with?
I shot a movie called Wendy and Lucy for Kelly Reichardt.
I should know that because I did see that, and I have had Kelly also on one time. Didn't go great, but it was. She's hard for some reason. She's
a very rigorous director and person. She's real no nonsense.
Yeah, but in personally, I ran into her a few times. She couldn't have been nicer. Then did this, and it was just hard, and we didn't have enough time, so it was very difficult to get a rhythm going with her. Not her fault, and I honestly didn't get past talking about her childhood because it just turns out really interesting background. Like
she does have a really interesting background from Miami.
Yeah, and like riding the bus, going on these long trips with her mother.
Yeah, her mom was a vice cop.
All this stuff. Which if you do talk about, you realize why she makes the movie she makes. By the way, the kinds of films she makes and the themes that kind of keep coming back. But Wendy and Lucy was. I love that film. I remember seeing it also at the New York Film Festival the year that came out
at the Ziegfeld.
Maybe. I remember that's where they had the public screening. Oh wait, I must have seen it there.
That's where the premiere was.
Yeah, I think I
wish they'd actually.
Well, there is no Ziegfeld. Oh. Who's that?
I know that's probably just a delivery.
Oh, right. They just buzz anybody or everybody. So we'll leave it in. It's kind of cool. Yes, I do remember there was I remember they had that little red carpet. She walked. I think I snapped a shot of her and who is the actor in it?
Michelle Williams.
No, yeah, she showed up too.
Larry Fessenden.
Larry's in it. Who I just did. Just posted yet another. He's like one of the most frequent guests I have on this at this point. It was like for years I was like, I got to get that weird guy that I keep seeing. Like he just intrigues me so. And then one night I get an email. That could be for you. It's possible.
Let me see.
Yeah, go ahead. Check.
Hold on.
I'll put a pin in it.
Probably UPS. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, so I was like, I got to get this guy, and I forget. I finally remembered one guy who said he knew him. And he said he would forward to the email, and then out of 10 minutes later, I get an email, or later that evening, I get an email from Larry saying, "I understand you're looking for me. What can I do for you?"
Yeah,
and then just became this real big just advocate and helped. Keeps coming on. He asked to come on to help promote their new Tales from Beyond the Pale, which is an audio play that they do. He and a few other folks, and but. Right, he produces her Kelly regularly. And was in that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get up, go off on tracks. Obviously, that's my biggest Achilles. So anyhow, well, that's great. So you worked on Wendy and Lucy for Kelly. Did you ever collaborate again?
Just Wendy and Lucy.
Interesting. Yeah, she's got such a great bunch of films.
Yeah,
I would love to get her back on and have a little bit more time with her. But the good thing was I ended up getting Peter Sarsgaard on that same episode because it was Night Moves, and he was available, so that was pretty good, and he was a lot of fun. He was much easier. He's very open, and she's very guarded. It seemed, something. I don't know what it was, or maybe she just doesn't like doing publicity.
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. She's
the press. When you go to the hotels and those things, I really hate that. I mean, I enjoy. I don't. It's not. It's just that with Todd Haynes, though, it was at a hotel, but he was just great. But when you get stuck in that day, so I usually try to get as early as I can in those days if I can.
Yeah.
Because you get them, they're still pretty fresh, and if you have a good rapport, it works out much better than at the end of the day.
Of course.
Yeah, makes sense, right? So is that it? Is that all the features? Or?
Well, those are probably those are the best known ones. There's a few others. I shot a movie called The Romantics for Galt Niederhofer. It's the only movie she directed. Huh. She's probably better known as a producer. The first movie I shot was a horror movie called Head Trauma. that actually
I've only seen Head Trauma 6.
Yeah. Head Trauma was directed by a guy named Lance Weiler. We were camera assistants together, and then
Lance Weiler.
Lance Weiler. Okay. He teaches film or teaches media studies at Columbia. The second movie after Head Trauma was called The Blue Hour, directed by a guy named Eric Nazarian, and that was actually how Kelly Reichardt discovered me. I think that movie was being edited, or maybe it was sound designed. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think Leslie Schatz, who's Kelly's sound designer, was designing The Blue Hour, and she saw some footage, and that was my end.
That's great.
Then Wendy and Lucy was my third one. Then The Romantics was my fourth, and then Frances Ha and all the Noah stuff.
Right. That must have felt like a kind of just a wonderful opportunity for you at the time.
Meeting Noah?
Yeah, just, because he was obviously on the rise by that point.
It was amazing. Harris Savitas introduced me to Noah, and he was very clever about how he really wanted me to. Harris was a great advocate of mine, and he really wanted me to be able to shoot Frances Ha, and he introduced me to Noah and said, this guy studied with Eric Rohmer, meaning me, which I did, and then he walked away.
So you buried the lead. I mean, I had somebody send me your bio, and I'm pretty sure I read it at the beginning, but it probably just...
I did.
Somebody put Eric Rohmer in there. I would have remembered it as a fan.
I studied... so when I was a comparative literature student in college, I went to Brown University. And my junior year, I spent in Paris. Did like a junior year abroad. And the best thing, easily, probably my entire college career, was getting to take a cinematography class with Eric Rohmer, where the class consisted of, it was in French, and he showed, each class he'd show a different movie, usually one of his own, and he'd turn the sound completely off and just talk. And so much of the class was devoted to talking about Nestor Almendros, his frequent cinematographer.
Sure.
Whose birthday it was yesterday or 2 days ago.
Well, we celebrated, I know.
So that was this amazing experience I got to have. And then that happened well before I met Harris.
What year are we talking about?
That was 1992, 93. So I wish I could.
So he was.
I wish I could tell you exactly what movie he was making then. He was in prep for a movie shot in Paris that year, and every student in the class was jockeying to have some kind of a job on that class. I didn't even try because I speak French, but I was a little apprehensive, and I could just see all these other kids like just really
Sure, it was very, very
going hard and trying to hustle their way onto a Rohmer movie, and I thought I just want to relax
outside the fray.
I just want to
not get in the fray.
I just want to enjoy this.
Yeah.
But in the back of my head, I thought, well, geez, it would be great if I could.
But you don't want to get in the fray. You don't want to get your hands dirty. I understand. Makes sense, you know. Will anything touch like that early though, that 70s, you know, when he's making like Claire's Knee and he's making My Night at Maud's and all the other stuff?
Will anything touch it? I mean,
well, I just mean those movies are so, especially that, I think it was Claire's Knee. There was a couple there were shot in color. Just fantastic looking.
Yeah.
I mean, so beautiful.
Well, you know, Nestor Almendros, his frequent DP, wrote this great book called A Man with a Camera, similar to the Russian movie by the same name.
An obscure reference. What is it referring to?
But Nestor said his favorite movie that he ever did with anyone was La Collectionneuse, which is a Rohmer,
It's an
great
early
Rohmer movie.
Film. Yeah.
That's part of the Moral Tales series. Yeah. And
Rohmer did several cycles. He was interested in cycles, film cycles, like telling stories in cycles. So he's got like 3 or 4 of them.
And La Collectionneuse really is beautiful and simple and magical. But I really like.
It is always, his films though always involve somebody who was going on vacation.
Yeah.
Almost always, right? Somebody's trying to.
That's a good point.
Somebody very concerned. True. And then there
had
to be
My Night at Maud's. No, there's Vacation. It's not at the
there's
core.
There's got to be a long Night at Maud's. A lot of talk on romance. There's got also that cliche that I don't think people really talk about anymore, but there used to be, like in the 80s and 90s, they would show, like if somebody would want to do a parody of a French film, they would show like 2 people sitting in a cafe with their their espresso and cigarettes and to be talking about the death of the romance and all that, and they'd be sitting there talking poetically about love and all that. I mean, that was from Rohmer films.
Yeah.
Essentially, that was the guy that was doing that. But the way he did it was, beautiful, and I don't know. So they're not. I don't know. We're a select group out there, the Rohmer fans, but I count myself in there.
Me too, very much so.
Mm-hmm. And Noah Baumbach too. I would assume. I assume from watching.
He named his son Rohmer.
Well, that's subtle, though. I didn't know that. Right? Really, Rohmer?
That's Rohmer Baumbach.
Wow. It's a nice name.
Yeah,
kind of it's.
But so when Harris introduced me, he said, "Oh, this guy studied with Rohmer," and then he kind of like crossed the street and walked away, leaving Noah to say, "Wait, how did that happen? What was that like?"
You were natural.
That was So Harris really, he was really kind.
Yeah, and kind. I'll say.
Unfortunately, I think I may need to stop.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We can wind it down a little. I didn't realize it was an hour 14 minutes, and then you brought up. You said we were concerned for those listening. We were going back and forth trying to find enough time, and I just thought, this guy. How much more time does he need than a half hour? Boy, was I wrong. We're on our third half hour. No, it's perfect. That was great, and it just leaves us wanting more. So we'll do another part some point. We'll come back and do more.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. You can bring, everybody is, I guess Nestor's long gone.
Nestor's no longer with us,
right.
Unfortunately.
Harris no longer with us, sadly. Eric Rohmer no longer with us. But, you can bring somebody else. We can also bring somebody and kind of talk about that collaboration. I don't know that I've done that.
Yeah, we should.
And so maybe on a project coming up or something.
It is a really interesting, when it works well, it's a really important collaboration.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't go well, it's
also an interesting reason why
important.
It doesn't, but it's an important conversation to have, but you won't find too many. Well, that's not true. You might find a direct, if both people really want to come in and be open and honest, and, it is you move on, you do other, projects in the future. You shouldn't unless you have a falling out, but that's hopefully not usually the case. Even if something doesn't work.
I've been fortunate so far.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. It seems like you would be. You seem like a really nice guy and reasonable and pretty rooted.
Thanks, Adam.
So it's nice meeting you, Sam. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I'm a Filmwax fan.
Oh, thank you. I'm a Sam Levy fan. So thank you.